Hello everyone, welcome back. Take a breath here before we begin to center yourself into your practice. When you're ready, blink the eyes open. We'll need 2 blocks today, a blanket and a bolster or a cushion from your couch or a pillow from your bed. We'll get started in a squat. So however is easiest for you, begin to take the heels and toes out and bend the knees deeply. You can start with the rocking motion if you want to begin with a little bit of movement. Just side to side, lifting one heel at a time. And then when you're ready, you'll settle into your center. You might even place one of those blocks or both of those blocks underneath the sit bones. Allow the collarbones to be broad. The knees are nice and wide, so there's plenty of space for your belly. In many countries and prior ancestors gave birth this way, so this is a really important posture to begin to find comfort in. So as you settle into stillness, see if you could allow the pelvis to drop. Allow yourself to feel a little more grounded through the feet. But the spine is nice and long. The crown of the head reaching to the ceiling. As you lengthen through the spine. Just one more breath here. You may begin to lift the hips and remove the props from underneath you. And our counter pose is dangling pose. So take the feet wide enough for your belly to have space. You might bend the knees. And then I like to bring the blocks on their high settings underneath my elbow so I can really release forward. Just taking a few breaths in this relaxed forward fold. Inhale, halfway lift, and then we'll come to hands and knees. You can either take the blocks on their lowest setting or remove them completely, and we'll move into a cat-cow just to reset. From here, we'll move to our next posture. So go ahead and grab hold of the bolster and take it underneath your seat. And we have two options for this next posture. It's called square pose in yin, or you could take Sukhasana. So Sukhasana is just taking one shin in front of the other. I'll have you remember which shin that is. The next version of this posture is to take one heel across, flexed over the opposite knee. So it's almost like a pigeon pose or a double pigeon if you're familiar. And if this is much too much on your hips or your knees, then you'll stick with that first variation of Sukhasana with one shin placed in front of the other. You'll see here, I'll move through a couple different variations with the props. So one option is to begin to lower over the legs, whether you're in Sukhasana or square pose. You might take the blocks on their high settings and rest your palms on the blocks as you begin to lean forward. And this is a posture that you might begin to settle into as you soften. So allowing that time in that space as long as there's no pain. And breathing into the legs, allowing gravity to draw your knees closer to the earth. You'll keep that top foot flexed if you're in square pose with the heel resting on top of the opposite knee. You may even bring that blanket in between the lifted knee and the lower ankle if you want a little extra padding. And if you are using the blocks or leaning forward, you can begin to walk a little more forward as you begin to feel the body opening and inviting a little more deepening. Never forcing and never finding yourself over the threshold of a sensation of about 6. Knowing that you're never stuck in a posture and you can always come out early or adjust as you need. One last breath here. And then if you were lower, you'll begin to lift and then remove that top leg. We'll take windshield wiper as our counter pose. Bending one knee at a time with the feet nice and wide. And then I'm readjusting the pelvis so that I have the support of the bolster beneath me. And then if you're in Sukhasana, you'll just take the opposite shin in front this time. And if you're taking square pose, you'll take the opposite foot on top. Again, make sure if you're in square pose, the top foot, the ankle is flexed to support the joints in the knee. And then if you're using the blocks to begin to lower closer to your legs, closer to the earth, then you can begin to come forward. If there's space for your belly, you might round the spine instead of trying to stay broad in the collarbones. And again, here, if you'd like to, you can use the blanket in between the top knee and the bottom ankle for just a little extra cushion. You might close the eyes, soften the jaw. And then as you begin to feel more opening across the hips, an invitation to move deeper, you might walk the blocks a little more forward, only if it feels right. One more breath. And then we'll gently come out of this pose, hands behind you, take the feet nice and wide, and allow yourself to take windshield wiper as a counter pose. Knees over to one side and then over to the opposite side. This is going to be Sphinx pose. So you'll bring the bolster or pillow underneath the pelvis and make sure there's enough padding so there's enough room for your belly. So that might mean adding a second pillow or adding that blanket for a little more height so that your belly can not touch the earth or just barely brush the earth, but you're not resting any weight on your belly. And then your forearms will come into a number 11 on the blocks. 90-degree angle, shoulder to elbow, elbow to wrist. And just allow the legs to relax behind you. And this posture might take a little more adjusting just to make sure you get it just right for the belly to feel supported and to not compress the belly. But we're looking for an opening across the chest. Relax the shoulders away from the ears. And this is a bit more of an active yin posture. Not necessarily because we're doing anything, but we want to make sure that there's an integrity across the shoulders so we're not slumping down with our forehead reaching towards the earth. We want to keep the head lifting as we strengthen the back muscles along the back side of the body and open the chest. A gentle heart opener. If it's comfortable for you, you can soften the eyes here. One last breath. Then we'll come to hands and knees and take a brief child's pose as our counter posture. Bring the knees as wide as they need to be. Send the hips towards the heels. When you're ready, come back up to all fours. We'll move the bolster and the blanket out of the way. And our next pose is frog pose. So we'll take the blanket and open it up so that it's wide enough for our knees. Is a little extra padding. And you'll see I'm going to go through a couple different variations of this pose, or not so much variations, but it takes me a little time to get comfortable in this posture. Take the knees nice and wide and try to line up the ankles so that they're about as wide as the knees. And you might rest the chest on the bolster if that leaves you enough space for your belly. In this moment, it wasn't enough space for my belly. You could try the elbows to the blocks. You might bring in a rocking motion forward and back through the hips. I needed a little more space, so I ended up bringing the bolster on top of the blocks to try to elevate my chest a little higher. So you'll experiment. But the idea is have the knees nice and wide in this frog pose and the chest and belly supported so that you can really soften the hips towards opening. And try to be patient with yourself as you find the right and optimal position for you. It really is about the setup in yin, and then you allow yourself to soften. If at any point this becomes too intense, you can always back out, drawing the knees closer together. And if you need a different posture, you're always welcome to take a supported child's pose. Taking one more breath here. And then press yourself up, draw the knees back together. Move the props out of the way. Again, we'll take windshield wiper. Because of all that external rotation, you could even just take broken bridge, take the heels wide and the knees towards one another to allow for that internal rotation. From here, we'll take a side lying position, so you can take the bolster underneath horizontally your ribs, and then take a block on the low setting for your head, and then take the other block a little higher than that, off the mat perhaps, on the taller setting, so that you can rest your arm, your top arm. So it's the rib cage resting on the bolster or the cushion, the head resting on the block at its low setting, and then the top arm resting on the top block on its high setting. And you might take that blanket in between the knees if that feels supportive, to have a little extra cushion between the legs. And this is allowing us to have a side body stretch. Usually we take banana pose in yin, but we can't do that in pregnancy because it's on our backs. So this is our alternate posture for banana pose. And just allow yourself to settle once again. Go ahead and release that. Our counter pose is going to be a gentle open twist. Don't make it too dramatic here. We just want to sweep the arm open and then close it back up, palm to palm, a few times before we switch to side lying posture on the second side. So once you're done with those 3 open arm twists, you'll adjust so that you can get comfy on the second side. Rest the rib cage along the bolster, the head on the block, and the top arm on that block above. If the top arm doesn't feel great here, or you don't have a second block, you could always just bring the arm down by your side or resting in front of you. When you're ready, take another breath, and then we'll take those open arm twists. And then gently press yourself up. Our posture next is going to be puppy pose. So take the blanket underneath the knees and the blocks for the forearms. You might use the bolster or not. And the idea here, it's a little different than child's pose because the hips stay over the knees instead of reaching back towards the heels. but you keep the arms reaching out long in front. And so you might take the bolster under the chest, or you might take it on top of the blocks. It depends on what's supportive. And this is a great posture for getting a breech baby into position. This is one of the postures for the Miles circuit, which is supposed to help to induce labor. And not that it would if you just did it on its own, but it does also help the baby get into position here. So forward leaning postures help us get the baby into position. And then we'll move into child's pose from here. You can bring the bolster between the hips and the heels if that's helpful, and you might keep those blocks for the elbows to rest on. I personally like this variation because it gives me more room for my belly and I can still soften my forehead to the mat. Okay, we'll come out of here and move into a heart opener. You can take one block on the high setting, one block on the mid setting, and place the bolster over top of it. This will be our final posture of Shavasana. You can take this variation with the blocks on the bolster to prop your heart up so that you're not flat on your back. Or if you prefer, you can also take it into side lying pose on your left or your right side, but preferably your left side, and rest there for this final closing part of practice. You might take a blanket and cover yourself up. You might take a moment to connect to your baby, rub your belly, and then allow yourself to move into ultimate rest. I'll let you know when it's time to come out. Allowing yourself these last final moments to simply rest and receive. Acknowledging your body is doing so much throughout the entire time of pregnancy. And allowing yourself to really revel in these moments of stillness, rejuvenation, and replenishing. Knowing that it's beneficial for you and your baby as you rest. When you're ready, you'll begin to roll out the ankles, roll out the wrists. Maybe take a nice big good morning stretch. And if you aren't already on your side, rock off the props to your side. One final pause here. And then gently press yourself up to a seat. Coming to your seat, you might take your hands to your belly, or one hand to your heart, one to your belly. And offer yourself some gratitude, thanking yourself for this time. It's been my honor to guide you through. Namaste.